Stop asking for continuances. Hi, I'm Rita Long, the author of The Happier Attorney, and this is a channel where we talk about flat fees and mindset and how you can be a happier attorney. And today we're going to be talking about continuances and why they are not good for you, not good for your client, and how they are different with flat fees, how your approach to continuances changes with flat fees. So when you are using hourly fees, it really doesn't matter how long things take. Maybe it should, but it doesn't. And your focus is on procedure. What's the next hearing? What's the next step? How long is it going to take? What can I bill for it? Even if it's not a conscious thought, it's still there. And whether a case takes 6 months or a year, it really doesn't matter. Okay? To you. To you. With flat fees, our focus is different. Our focus is not on the procedure. It is on going in, getting a bang-up job done, and getting it done for our client as soon as possible, absent a strategic reason to have it take longer. So, for instance, if you have a family law case where the other side has drugs or alcohol issues or is going to need treatment or something, you might want to spread that case out to see how they do, because anybody can get their act together for a week. 6 months or a year, that's a different story. But absent a strategic reason, why wouldn't we want to go in and get it done? Think of it from our client's perspective. Even if it's a transaction issue, it's still hanging over somebody's head. It's still a thing out there that they're having to deal with, much less litigation. My gosh, the litigation hell, it's hell. If you can shorten that time period up for your client and get them out of that, even a couple of weeks, much less a couple of months sooner, why the heck wouldn't you do that? And with flat fees, our incentive is to get it done. Done well, but get it done. It's to be efficient because we're going to make more money and get it done. Okay? Good for you, good for your client. So how do continuances come about with this? Well, you're going to hopefully be a little bit more conscious of it. Hopefully you're not one of these attorneys that routinely ask for continuances, because quite frankly, I think that signals that they're mediocre. Not to be a judgmental jerk, but if you're the attorney who is just routinely asking for continuances, that tells me you don't have your act together. You don't have your act together, because that's not normal. You should, if you have a manageable caseload, which you have an ethical duty not to exceed, not to have an unmanageable caseload, if you're just continuing to ask for continuances, that tells me nothing good is going on. Either you have too heavy a caseload or you just don't have your act together. But it's not fair to anybody, including your own client, quite frankly. And I've run into those attorneys, and it's not pleasant. I remember when I first went out on my own, I was doing some coverage work for one criminal defense attorney. And she said, oh, just go to this court. Here's my client's name, and we're just getting a continuance. Okay. Well, I assumed her client knew that. Did her client know that? No. It wasn't the first time either. So I go to court. I meet her client. First of all, he had no idea who I was. I was the umpteenth attorney that had showed up. He had taken the day off work. He was a young guy. His parents had taken the day off work. And here I am. Oh no, we're just continuing it. He was pissed, and rightfully so. And I hope he fired her and got a new attorney, quite frankly. That's not cool. Not cool. Right? And I can tell you, I've been practicing nearly 30 years. It'll be 28 years in the fall. And I think that the only time I've ever asked for a continuance was when my mother was dying. and it wasn't going to be harmful. I would get coverage during that time period. And I remember the opposing counsel, the prosecuting attorney, it was a criminal case, objected. And he literally said, because it was something that got bumped a week. And he said, well, she said her mom was going to die last week and she didn't. So how are we going to know that her mom is going to die this week? I kid you not. He actually said those words. I got my continuance. Absent something like that, to that level of this is what's going on in my life, you probably shouldn't be asking for a continuance. And you probably don't need it. It shouldn't be just a knee-jerk reaction to buy yourself more time. Because if you know what you're doing, which you should if you have a bar number, you can do it. How do I know? I've done it. Again, going back to when I first went out on my own and I was covering, this was a different attorney, different criminal defense attorney. He told me, I was going in to continue a probation hearing. I didn't have a file. I had the guy's name. I had the defendant's name and a yellow pad. And I brought that just because I would never walk into a courtroom without it. And I showed up, and thankfully I knew the prosecuting attorney. Thank God for Joe Wheeler. And I walk in, I'm like, hey, Joe, I'm here for blah, blah, blah. We're just getting a continuance. And he looks at me like I have two heads, and he's like, yeah, no. I'm like, what do you mean, no? He goes, this is a contested probation hearing that you guys wanted. We have two witnesses, one of whom has just driven 3 hours to get here. We are not continuing this. Crap. And I knew the judge, and based on that, there was no way the judge was going to continue it. No way. He's like, here's my file. And it was like that. Start reading. We'll call it at the end of the calendar. I started reading. There were 2 violation allegations. I started reading. I met with my now new client. And I did it. I did the hearing. And we won on one of the 2 counts. Now, was that fair to the client to put him in that position and put me in that position? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that was the last work I ever did for that attorney. Not cool. And unfortunately, that is the level of what some attorneys do. My point is that I did it. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective enough. He was found not commit one of them. A couple of years ago, we had a family law case where the client came in, hired us on a Monday for a Friday trial. And this was a family law case that had been going on for 2 years, nearly 2 years, with experts involved. Each side had multiple attorneys. Every allegation in any case was in this one. This was not an easy case. And I told my client, this is going to be ugly. It's triage. I'm going to forget names. I'm going to forget some facts, but we're going to get it done. My client needed this done, and there was no reason to continue it. I could do it. And when I sent in my notice of appearance, what was the first thing opposing counsel said? Oh, I suppose you're asking for a continuance. I said, no. You could, it was on a phone call, but I could see his face just, oh. Yeah, it's a new ball game. New ball game. And that week wasn't pleasant, let me tell you. I don't ever want to do that again. But we went to trial on Friday. We did 2 days of trial. And if I'm going to trial, it's because the other side's being unreasonable. So I generally do really, really well. And we did really, really well. I don't want to say swept the floor, but swept the floor. I didn't need a continuance. Sometimes I know it's a safety thing for us. It feels like, oh, I need a continuance and I need to. No, you don't. Maybe sometimes you do, but in a case like that, don't just assume I need a continuance. Maybe you just need to read the file and do your job and do it. And especially, if you're brand new, obviously that might not apply. But it's riding a bike. And it might have been a little shaky, a little rusty, but it was fine. What also did that signal to opposing counsel? Oh, okay. Do you think he was rushing to prepare? Because he had a pro se on the other side. He wasn't as prepared. Now he had to prepare. It also signaled to him, I knew what the heck I was doing. And I did. And he had to scramble. So the next time you're like, oh, I need a continuance, just slow your roll and ask, do I really? And what is the cost to your client? Now, if I had told my client, we're going to get a continuance, he would have been fine with that because, he understood he was just hiring me, less than a week before trial. But that wasn't in his best interest. He had been dealing with this thing for years. He needed this over. His kids needed this over. And even opposing counsel still tried to get a continuance with the court. And I later found out why. The judge was really good and he didn't want a good judge. And his client wanted this to continue. She wanted the drama to continue. And he wanted more fees. Okay? So just slow your roll on any new continuance. Now, I understand that might ruffle some feathers with when someone asks you for a continuance because it's just kind of now, it's the professional thing to do. And courts are like, y'all go get along and I don't want any fighting. And if he wants a continuance, give him a continuance. Is that what's best for everybody? That's what's clogging up the court system. Our clients need this over. So if someone has a true emergency and it's not going to harm your client, okay, fine. But at least think about it. At least put it through the test of, is this going to harm my client? Is this a big deal? Or is this just something that guy always asks for a continuance? And maybe you start objecting. Maybe you at least make them make their argument to the court and remind the court of why it's prejudicial to your client. Why it's not a good thing to have this drawn out over and over again because opposing counsel can't get their act together. Now, obviously don't say it like that, okay? But your duty to your client, in my opinion, comes first, okay? And remember why you're doing this. Now, I wouldn't say that to a court like, I use flat fees, so I need to get it done. Okay, don't do that. All right. But it is best for our clients to get it done as soon as possible. It's also good for opposing side to get it done. It's not good for them to be drawn out and drawn out and drawn out. Okay. So really just pause when somebody asks for a continuance. Pause. Is it reasonable? Is it necessary? And when you want a continuance, also pause. Do you really need it, or are you just kicking the can because it feels better? Are you just trying to buy yourself a little time? Or would it be better to just bite the bullet and get it done because it's never going to be perfect? You're never going to be prepared enough where you're like, I'm totally prepared. Obviously, don't do something that you don't have any business doing. But don't get into this perfection paralysis that I see a lot with attorneys. And I've been guilty of it myself. Done is better than perfect. And there is no such thing as perfect anyway. So when you want to continue, just pause. Do I really need it, or do I have enough to go? And if you don't have enough to go, if you're unprepared, that's a you issue, and that's not fair to your clients. That's not fair to your clients. That's not fair to your opposing counsel. It's not fair to the courts. Wrap it up. Figure out what's going on. And if you're still overloaded and you're using flat fees, that's a problem. And the problem is at flat fees. That means you're undercharging, you don't have boundaries, you're taking on too many clients. There's a problem there. Again, that is a warning signal to you. Let's fix the problem. How about we fix the problem? Okay? So I hope this didn't ruffle feathers, but with flat fees, let's get it done. And by the way, even with hourly, get it done. Just get it done. Okay, thanks y'all. Take care. Bye.